Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For today's true crime narration, we shall be looking at a heartbreaking case from 2010 that took place near Sydney in Australia. Little Kiesha Louise Weippart came into this world on the 22nd of April 2004 to parents Christopher Weippart and Christie Abrahams. The previous year, their infant son, Ayden, had died as a result of sudden infant death syndrome. At the age of 6, young Kiesha would become a familiar face in Australian newspapers and television reports after she was reported missing by her distraught mother and her mother's new partner, Robert Smith. They told the police that on the morning of August 1st, 2010, Christie had gone into Kiesha's bedroom and found it empty. Their front door was ajar and they feared that Kiesha had been abducted. However, there was no sign of forced entry. Christie and Robert informed the police that the last time they had seen the little girl was at approximately 9:30 p.m. the previous evening when Christie had put her to bed in their home on Woodstock Avenue in Hebersham, a suburb of Sydney, adding that Kiesha had been wearing pink pyjamas and a purple pumpkin patch jacket. A massive search was soon underway. The police concentrated on the local area, with officers going door to door in search of information and then searching nearby residents' back gardens. Kiesha's step-grandfather, Rodney Jones, speculated that Kiesha may have been abducted whilst playing with stray cats that lived near the family's apartment, saying that Kiesha is always playing with cats. Maybe she had got up and gone out to play with the cats and someone got her there. Christie and Robert talked to the police, telling them of their happy family environment and how the young girl was well cared for and loved. Christie's partner, Robert, described Kiesha's disappearance as a living hell, adding that he had no idea where his stepdaughter was, saying, "If I had any idea, we'd be there looking." He described Kiesha to the police as good and always happy, and that we get along fine. I treat her just like she's my own. As they faced the media, Christie howled and begged for her beautiful girl's safe return. If anyone has seen her, can they please tell the police? From the start of the investigation, the police were incredibly suspicious of Christie and Robert's story, particularly as it emerged that Kiesha had not been seen by anyone except the couple since a family party 3 weeks before her disappearance. By the 4th of August, a tragic picture of Kiesha's life was being reported and homicide officers had joined the search team. It became clear that Kiesha was known to numerous government departments such as education and health, and that something was seriously wrong. Kiesha had only ever attended school for a total of 5 days in her short life, and when she was a toddler had been admitted to a Western Sydney hospital with a significant bite wound which had been inflicted by Christie. Christie was convicted of assault, occasioning bodily harm, and Kiesha was removed from her care for 18 months. Christie was ordered to enter a parental care plan, attend an anger management course, and get counselling, all of which she completed. Kiesha was returned to her in December 2006. Christie and Robert denied any involvement in Kiesha's disappearance. Forensic officers returned to the family home, searching for clues as to what had happened. By the 8th of August, 7 days after Kiesha's disappearance, the ground search for the young girl was called off, but work on the case continued. Then, at the end of January 2011, police officers told the state coroner that Kiesha was dead. They had ruled out the possibility that she had been abducted from her home or that she had wandered off and fallen into the hands of the wrong person. With all other theories ruled out, they were certain that her disappearance was a murder. It's a hard call to have to make and a pretty big decision, but we have had 6 months of exhaustive investigations into that little girl's disappearance, and that is where we are at, said the head of the investigation, Detective Inspector Russell Oxford. Eventually, Robert spoke of his involvement to an undercover police officer, stating, "I must have the worst luck, and I was like, I didn't do anything, but I'm there. I'm in the picture. I'm part of it." In the early hours of Friday the 22nd of April 2011, what should have been Kiesha's 7th birthday, the police descended upon an area off Stony Creek Road at Shalvey, where they found burnt skeletal remains buried in a shallow grave. Also at the gravesite were Christie and Robert, who were arrested and charged with Kiesha's murder. They were refused bail. According to their solicitor, Christie was immensely distressed that morning. Several local people had gathered at the police station to shout abuse at the pair, and the police had to put measures in place to control the growing crowd and prevent them chasing after the police van. When each of them appeared in court, a harrowing picture of Kiesha's short life emerged. On the 16th of December 2011, Robert appeared in court, where it was confirmed that the murder charge against him had been dropped. Instead, he pleaded guilty to the lesser charges of manslaughter on the grounds of negligence and being an accessory after the fact to murder. Many of Kiesha's neighbours, who had originally supported Christie and Robert when Kiesha went missing, appeared in court wearing purple t-shirts showing a photograph of the young girl. In November 2012, Christopher Weippart, Kiesha's biological father, was found dead in his home. He never got to know how the people responsible for his daughter's death would be punished. The police did not reopen the files into Ayden's death from SIDS following the events that led to Kiesha's death. After making his plea deal, Robert was sentenced at a hearing in February 2013. Robert said in court that he had heard a loud bang from Kiesha's bedroom. After discovering that she had been knocked unconscious by another person, who at that time could not be named for legal reasons, but who we now know is Christie, Robert had ample opportunity to seek medical help, but instead saw Kiesha's condition deteriorate and did nothing about it. The Crown Prosecutor, Keith Alder, said that Robert went to work the following day, leaving Kiesha in a comatose state, and when he returned home that night, the young girl was dead. After Kiesha's death, Christie and Robert put her body in a suitcase and left it in her bedroom for a period of up to 5 days. During this time, Robert rode around on his bicycle looking for a suitable burial spot. When he found this at Shalvey, he prepared a grave. On the 18th of July, the pair donned disguises and took a taxi to the burial spot, carrying Kiesha's body in the suitcase. A taxi driver came forward to verify this. Robert doused the young girl's body in petrol and set it alight. His defence barrister, Mark Austin, told the court that Robert was a passive man who was physically and verbally abused by Christie, leading to feelings of helplessness and high levels of anxiety. They went on to say that Robert was fundamentally quiet by nature and suffered from low self-esteem, adding that Robert's failure to obtain medical assistance can be explained by these aspects of the relationship with Christie. On March 3, 2013, Justice Megan Latham sentenced Robert to a maximum of 16 years in jail with a non-parole period of 12 years, stating that he had made a simple and cowardly choice to protect his own interests above those of a vulnerable child. Now turning our attention to Christie. In May 2013, she admitted Kiesha's manslaughter in an attempt to avoid a murder charge. This plea was rejected by the Crown, which remained determined to try her for murder. Christie also requested to be tried by a judge alone on the basis that there had been extensive pre-trial publicity that might prejudice a jury. This request was also rejected. On June 17, 2013, the morning that Christie's trial was due to start, she changed her plea and admitted the murder of her 6-year-old daughter. At the sentencing hearing, it was revealed how Kiesha had once told a caseworker that Mum did that after being asked about a cigarette burn on her arm. Neighbours and family friends reported seeing Kiesha flinch even if her mother casually raised her hand while speaking, and noted that Kiesha appeared fearful of her mother. The DNA profile of Kiesha's blood was found all around her mother's apartment, and the court was told that the abuse had escalated in seriousness, particularly in the last 18 months of Kiesha's life. Whilst the post-mortem examination was unable to establish the exact cause of death, it did find that Kiesha had suffered fracturing to her teeth, consistent with a contact sport blow or jumping from a height and landing heavily on the ground. One expert said that Kiesha had suffered as many as 5 fresh blows to her jaw shortly before her death, as well as several injuries, suggesting repeated assaults in the weeks and months prior to that. Injuries only found on the remains of those who had suffered severe physical assault, evidenced by her bones showing new formation and thickening, a trait of healing injuries. The court also heard how it was believed that Christie abused and resented Kiesha because of the physical resemblance she had to her biological father. Christie reportedly told her father that she would hurt or kill Kiesha as she was sick of her and in bed and up at school. Education officials had visited the family home several times, and school teachers and other witnesses had reported bruises on the young girl's face and head. After Kiesha's death, but prior to her being reported missing, Christie and Robert went to great lengths to try to cover their tracks. They went shopping on the 28th of July and bought Kiesha some toys, including a Tinkerbell poster. They concocted a story that on the evening of the 31st of July, they had watched the movie, The Golden Compass, before Christie tucked Kiesha into bed for the night. When they appeared before the media on August the 3rd, Christie begged for help finding her daughter, who she knew had been dead for 3 weeks. The court heard that on the night of her death, Kiesha had argued with her mother about putting on her pyjamas. Christie claimed to the police that she had only nudged Kiesha with her foot when she was lying on the floor, refusing to put on her pyjamas. Christie then claimed that Kiesha had jumped and hit her head on the bed. She went on to say that she had put Kiesha in the shower, noting that she felt like jelly, but that she was still breathing. She said that she had found her daughter unresponsive the next day. However, this version of events was at odds with the level of injuries found on Kiesha's body. The only time Christie showed any emotion to the evidence was when the details turned to her own childhood. She had endured an early life of abuse, domestic violence and neglect, and found her own mother dead at the age of 10. After this, she was put into foster homes and as a child had been subjected to bullying and anti-Aboriginal comments. It was reported that she has an IQ of under 70. In the judge's comments, he described Christie as having lived a troubled life beyond most people's understanding, and that she was an inevitable product of entrenched intergenerational failures. As anyone knows, the burdensome responsibilities of parenthood are not bestowed only on those who are capable of meeting them, adding that Christie was patently ill-equipped for the role and probably equally unable to recognise it. He went on to say that Christie had shown remorse and was unlikely to re-offend, and that her intellectual disability and own experience of being abused as a child contributed to her crime. Justice Ian Harrison continued that Christie did not intend to kill Kiesha, and also that he could not be satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that Christie was responsible for all of Kiesha's prior injuries other than the bite in 2005. There were angry scenes both within and outside the courthouse as the sentence was handed down, with people screaming abuse at Christie. She was sentenced to up to 22.5 years in prison, with a non-parole period of 16 years. The judge stated that the crime ranked in the mid-range of seriousness because it was an impulsive and uncontrolled act of violence. The sentence was comparatively light compared to other punishments handed down to mothers who murder. The judge said that there was a 25-year standard non-parole period for the murder of a child, but indicated that other factors could be and were taken into account when determining the sentence. Christie will be eligible for parole in April 2027. In April 2023, Robert was granted parole and will finish his sentence living as a free man, albeit with very strict parole conditions. Whilst in custody, he completed therapeutic programs, several educational programs, had behaved appropriately, and had been employed in various capacities for the majority of his incarceration. In just 2.5 years' time, it is entirely possible that the two people responsible for Kiesha's horrifying murder will both be free. Do you believe that justice was served? Please add your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, in a strange coincidence, on the 13th of August 2010, 12 days after Kiesha went missing, an Australian psychic told the police that she had had a premonition about Kiesha, which drew her to the Narrabeen Reserve in Sydney. Some people call it Narrabeen. Here the psychic found a torso wrapped in plastic. Whilst nothing to do with Kiesha's case, it's interesting that this woman had headed to this particular part of the park. The torso belonged to a missing woman who, in another coincidence, was also called Christie. Come back next week to hear the details of this crime. My thoughts are with all the victims of today's story. Moving on, just a quick petty crime update, which features subscribers' pets. Susan from Brisbane has sent in Princess Kathy, also less formally known as Kathy. Her true crimes include letting mice live free after bringing them into the house, frantic rushing around the house early in the morning, I mean really early, 4 a.m. And then Kathy decides after that she's starving hungry. Thanks Susan for sending in Princess Kathy. Also, there'll be no post for this week's case. Thank you for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye.